You've definitely heard of OpenAI. They were founded with this huge, incredible vision to build artificial intelligence for the benefit of all humanity. But what if I told you that a wave of reports from insiders and people who used to work there suggests that behind that amazing promise, a totally different company is taking shape? One that might be leading us all toward a future that, well, that serves a much, much smaller group of people. And look, this is where it all started, right here in their official charter. This wasn't just some marketing slogan they cooked up. This was meant to be a contract with the public, a promise to all of us that this incredibly powerful technology would be developed safely, be accessible to everyone, and actually help humanity. But now, that promise seems to be cracking. The story that's starting to leak out from behind the company's closed doors is one of, frankly, chaos, broken commitments, and a major pivot away from that selfless mission toward a pretty relentless chase for profit and power. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the gap between the promise and what's actually happening. Then, the real human cost of these changes. We'll get into their controversial new partnership with the military, the absolutely massive financial risks, the man at the center of it all, and finally, what sources say is the ultimate plan for all of us. So first up, let's just look at the signs of trouble you can see from the outside. The little cracks in the shiny public image that suggest something else is going on underneath. You know, when you start connecting the dots, a pretty clear pattern starts to form. Their amazing video generator, Sora, abruptly shut down. We've seen an exodus of really key developers and top execs. The very safety teams that were supposed to keep AI in check, they've been gutted or, in some cases, just completely dissolved. And on top of all that, they're being accused of going after critics and whistleblowers with really expensive lawsuits.
And that last point, about putting pressure on whistleblowers, that brings us to what is easily the most tragic part of this story. It centers on one former employee who decided he just couldn't stay silent any longer.
His name was Shuchu Balaji. Now, he wasn't just some random guy. He'd been there for almost 4 years, and a co-founder even called him essential to the company's success. But over time, he got really, really concerned about the direction things were heading. He felt so strongly about this that he didn't just quietly quit. No way. He went public. He gave an interview to the New York Times and was even named as someone who might testify in these huge lawsuits against the company. And this is where it gets really chilling. Just look at how fast everything happened. In November, he quits. In December, he's talking to the press. And by January, he's found dead. Now, the official ruling was suicide, but his family has never, ever believed that. They hired their own private investigators, and the things they've reportedly found, well, they raised some really serious questions. We're talking about crucial surveillance cameras being unplugged, blood in multiple rooms, a bloody wig that wasn't his found at the scene. And maybe the most disturbing part, a key pen drive he always had on him was just gone. So while all this pressure was building up inside the company, OpenAI was making a quiet but really profound change to its public rules. It was opening the door to a customer it once swore it would never, ever work with, the military. The change itself was so simple, but the meaning behind it was huge. Before January 2024, their policy was crystal clear: no using their tech for military and warfare. Then, with zero announcement, that whole section just disappeared, vanished. The company's reason? They said it was just for clarity. But it quickly became pretty clear what was going on. OpenAI was now working with the Pentagon. And when legal experts took a look at their new contracts, they found that the parts that were supposed to prevent surveillance were, and I'm quoting here, just window dressing. They were actually using the same legal framework the NSA has used for decades to justify mass surveillance. So why would they make such a controversial move? Well, according to sources, it all comes down to money, an almost unimaginable amount of money that they need to fuel their crazy high costs. We're talking thousands of special computer chips and gigantic data centers just to train and run these AI models. $1 trillion. That is the rumored valuation for OpenAI's upcoming IPO. Just to give you some perspective, that would instantly make it one of the most valuable companies on the entire planet, even though it reportedly lost $8 billion in 2025 alone. They're just burning through cash to pay for all that computing power. Right now, you might be thinking, okay, whatever, I'm not buying into some risky IPO. But here's the catch. The risk might find you anyway. Our stock market is already incredibly concentrated. Just 10 tech companies, and pretty much all of them are heavily invested in AI, already make up over 40% of the entire S&P 500 index. So here's the really crucial part. Reports are saying the S&P 500 is actually changing its rules to fast-track companies like OpenAI into the index. If that happens, every single index fund, every 401k, every pension fund that simply tracks the market will be forced to buy the stock at its super inflated launch price. That means millions of people's retirement savings could automatically be exposed to this incredibly high-risk gamble. And at the absolute center of this trillion-dollar valuation, the deals with the Pentagon, and all the internal chaos, is one person, CEO Sam Altman. He famously went before Congress and told them under oath that he has no financial stake in OpenAI at all. He claimed he's paid just enough to cover his health insurance and that he's doing this whole thing purely because he loves the mission. And yet, right around that same time, he was being photographed driving a $4 million supercar. It's a contrast that has, led a lot of people to question his whole public persona. And then came this bombshell investigation from The New Yorker. It said that the former board members who tried to fire him in 2023 did so because of a pattern of deception. One of those board members claimed that when they confronted Altman about it, his response was so blunt that they basically interpreted it to mean, I have this trait where I lie to people, and I'm not going to stop. So where is all of this going? What's the end game? Well, according to inside sources and Sam Altman's own words, the plan seems to be to fundamentally change our relationship with information itself.
Altman has laid the vision out there himself. He sees a future where intelligence isn't something you have, it's something you buy. It becomes a utility, just like electricity or water, that you purchase from a company like OpenAI on a meter.
And according to the reporting, the strategy is pretty simple. First, you get your technology into every system imaginable: schools, businesses, the government. You become so integrated that it's impossible to remove you. You create a deep systemic dependency, and then you start charging for it. And that brings us right back to where we started. That charter, it still says the goal is to benefit all of humanity. But when you see a company deleting its safety promises, getting rid of its safety teams, and partnering up with the military, you just have to ask, in this future of metered intelligence, whose humanity are we really talking about?